Jason, welcome to the Boost Hospitality podcast. If you could please just take a couple of minutes and introduce you, your business, and how you got started in serviced accommodation.
Sure, thanks very much, Mark, and great to be here. So my background is very much from the property side. I qualified as a chartered surveyor sort of more years ago than I care to remember, sort of early 1990s. And worked as a commercial planning consultant in London, and had a property there that I'd originally bought, then moved out of and rented out. And then I moved up to Yorkshire and worked in the northeast from the sort of late 90s. And when I got there, I started buying investment property, residential property to let out, and built that up to a pretty significant scale through the 2000s. And as everybody now knows, back into 2007, 8, 9, it all became rather difficult, and we sort of scraped through by the skin of our teeth, and really then set about, I suppose, climbing out of the hole we'd fallen into. And part of that was really looking at the properties we'd got and trying to find ways of maximising our return from those properties. So it's really self-catering accommodation, but not necessarily, unlike a lot of the hospitality industry, not necessarily in either holiday or pure leisure destinations. So these might be, city centre, or even just generally urban areas, anywhere where people are going and working away from home. So our typical clientele would be people who might otherwise stay in budget hotels, certainly contractor-owned things, budget hotels, smaller B&Bs, family establishments, those sort of things. So as I say, it's a bit of an intro to me and a bit of a lead into what serviced accommodation is all about, which, as I say, we've been doing with some of our properties for about 5 years now.
And how many properties do you look after in the UK?
So total properties, all out of our rental stock, is about 185, mostly in the northeast. We've got a couple in London and about a dozen in Merseyside. But the short stay stuff, the serviced accommodation, is just in Sunderland, where our office is, and we've got 18 flats or apartments that we use for serviced accommodation. I increasingly I verge towards calling it short stay accommodation, because I think it's a more inclusive term. I think serviced accommodation has particular connotations about it. Some people will say to you, serviced accommodation is, where it's being serviced every day, sort of hotel style, and there are no doubt sort of establishments of that nature in larger cities. So, we probably sit somewhere between that and your typical self-catering accommodation where people are staying for a week or more.
I think the general misconception and the assumption with serviced accommodation is that it is mostly contractors, business people that are staying at these, but it's not. It's you get holiday goers, who are also staying, people that are just looking for 2 nights away, like I say, short stay accommodation. Where was the term serviced accommodation first coined? Do you remember, or is it just
No, I'm not sure. I think it's one of those things that's been about for years, and I think another misconception is this is something that has just happened in the last few years, and that's absolutely not the case. I can remember staying in a serviced apartment in London 30 years ago, so this sort of short stay accommodation has existed, for a long time. I just think for a number of reasons it's perhaps come to the fore, become more prominent. It's a significant growth area